today. I curse this family with heavy heart. No one can remove this curse. Why do you smell so bad?
Maybe she doesn't bath well.
This smelling maid must be the reason for my barrenness. Since you came to this house, nothing good happens. You clumsy fool, look what you've done.
It was an accident. Please, calm down.
Clean this mess up now.
I'm trying.
You don't only smell, you also destroy my things.
Since they don't appreciate me in this house, a horrible thing is going to happen.
In the glittering heart of Abuja, where glass towers kiss the sky and streetlights shimmer like falling stars, there was a house so magnificent that people slowed their cars just to admire it. Its gates were tall and golden, its gardens trimmed like royal crowns, and its walls painted the color of fresh milk. They called it the Palace on Hillview Crescent. But inside that palace, laughter was a stranger. Mr. and Mrs. Adeyemi had everything money could buy: cars that poured like satisfied lions, wardrobes heavy with silk and gold, and friends who bowed with envy in their hearts. Yet for 2 long years after their wedding, the one sound that refused to visit their mansion was the cry of a child, and silence, when it lingers too long, begins to whisper dangerous things. Living with them was a young housemaid named Anu. Her skin was pale like moonlight poured into human form. She was an albino, soft-spoken, gentle, and quiet as dawn before the rooster crows. But in that house, she was not treated like moonlight. She was treated like a shadow. Madam Adeyemi would laugh whenever Anu passed by. Look at her, she would sneer. As white as chalk, yet smelling like a wet goat. Her husband would chuckle, adding fuel to cruelty, as though it was a harmless game. They mocked her skin, they mocked her hair, they mocked the way she avoided the sun as if it were her sworn enemy. And sometimes when guests came visiting, they would call her out just to entertain their friends. Come and greet them, Madam would say, hiding her smirk behind polished fingernails. Let them see our snow white treasure. Laughter would rise like smoke in the room. Each laugh pierced Anu's heart like a thorn hidden inside a rose. She would bow her head, whisper, "Yes, ma," and retreat quietly to the kitchen, where tears fell into pots of soup no one noticed tasted slightly salty. But what they did not know was this: the moon sees what the sun ignores. Every night when the city of Abuja slept and generators hummed like distant spirits, Anu would sit by the small window in her servants' quarters. She would stare at the sky with eyes that carried both sorrow and something else, something deeper. Because Anu was not ordinary. The day she arrived at their gate, a sudden wind had blown across Hillview Crescent, though the air had been still moments before. The security man had later sworn that he heard faint whispers in that wind, but who listens to a poor man's story? And so the mockery continued. 2 years of marriage turned into 2 years of emptiness. Doctors were consulted, from the finest specialists in Abuja to herbalists hidden in villages beyond the reach of tarred roads. Prayers were shouted, fasts were declared, seeds were sown into churches. Yet Mrs. Adeyemi's womb remained as silent as a locked room. Frustration began to coil around her heart like a jealous serpent. She became bitter. Every time she saw a pregnant woman, her face tightened. Every time she heard a baby cry in the neighborhood, she shut the windows. And strangely, whenever she lashed out in anger, her eyes often found Anu. Maybe it's her bad luck she once muttered. Since she stepped into this house, nothing good has stayed. Her husband did not correct her. That night, as rain tapped gently against the roof like caution's fingers, Madam Adeyemi did something she had never done before. She slapped Anu. It was over something small, a broken glass cup. The sound echoed through the kitchen. Anu did not fight back. She did not cry loudly. She simply touched her cheek, looked up slowly, and for the first time, her eyes did not look broken. They looked knowing. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky, though the rain had already stopped. And somewhere in the quiet corners of that grand Abuja mansion, something unseen shifted. But the Adeyemis were too blinded by pride to notice. And that was how the story truly began. The sun rose over Abuja like a king stretching after sleep. Traffic flowed, markets bustled, and in the palace of Hillview Crescent, perfection wore a mask. Mr. and Mrs. Adeyemi went about their lives with polished smiles and heavy perfumes, attending charity galas, hosting friends, and speaking loudly about God's timing whenever anyone asked about children. They never noticed how their words, sharp as broken glass, caught the one person who served them faithfully. Anu would move like a quiet breeze through the mansion, cleaning, cooking, ironing, scrubbing. She avoided mirrors, she avoided sunlight, she avoided their eyes. But pain has a weight, and when it grows too heavy, even silence begins to crack. One afternoon, when the sky hung bright and merciless, Anu walked into the sitting room, carrying a silver tray of cold water. The glasses clanged softly like timid bells. Madam Adeyemi was seated on the screamed ladder sofa, scrolling through her phone, while her husband flipped lazily through a business magazine. "Drop it there," Madam said without looking up. Anu bent slightly and placed the tray on the glass table. As she turned to leave, Madame wrinkled her nose dramatically. "Wait," Anu froze. "Come closer." She obeyed. Madame waved her hand in front of her face. "Do you people know that albinism comes with smell? I read it somewhere. It explains everything." Mr. Adeyemi laughed. "So that's what it is. I thought maybe she just doesn't bath well." Madame chuckled, cruel delight dancing in her eyes. "We have been managing it for 2 years. Imagine living in a mansion that smells like something spoiled." Their laughter rose again, careless, heavy, merciless. Anu stood there, still, her fingers tightened around the edge of her apron. For 2 years she had swallowed words. For 2 years she had swallowed insults to flow over her like dirty water. For 2 years she had told herself that endurance was strength. But sometimes endurance becomes a prison. Tears gathered in her eyes, not the quiet tears of kitchen, but tears that burn. "I bathe every day, ma," she whispered, her voice trembling like a leaf before a storm. Madame scoffed. "Then it must be your skin, that white skin of yours. It looks like sickness." Mr. Adeyemi added, "Maybe that's why nothing good has stayed in this house." The word struck her like a slap, sharper than the one she had received days earlier. Something inside her snapped. Anu slowly lifted her head. Her pale face, often lowered in submission, now faced them fully. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but there was something else in her gaze, something ancient, something wounded beyond repair. "I have never spoken back to you," she said, her voice lowered but steady. "I have served you with respect. I have endured your mockery. I have swallowed your laughter." Her chest rose and fell heavily. "But today you have pierced my soul." The room grew strangely still. Even the ticking clock seemed to hold its breath. Anu turned her eyes upwards, past the ceiling, as if she could see beyond the sky itself. "Heaven that watches the proud," she cried, her voice rising like a desperate prayer. "Hear me today." A sudden wind pushed against the closed doors. The curtain trembled. "If my tears have meaning, if my suffering has weight, then let this injustice speak for me." Her voice deepened, no longer trembling, but echoing with something that did not sound entirely like her. "As you mock the skin I did not choose, as you despise the color God gave me, so shall your household wear it. Thunder cracked across the sky, though the sun was still shining. Any child that comes from your womb, she declared, pointing towards Madame Adeyemi, shall bear this same skin. Every child you gave birth to shall be albino. Her words fell into the room like stones into deep water. Silence followed, thick, heavy, terrifying. Madame Adeyemi stared at her in disbelief. Then she burst into laughter. Listen to her. The smelling maid has now become a prophetess. Mr. Adeyemi shook his head. Get out before I throw you out myself. But Anu did not speak again. She lowered her hand, wiped her tears, and walked slowly back to her quarters. Outside, the sun slipped behind a sudden cloud, and though the Adeyemi laughed it off as madness, neither of them noticed that the air in the mansion has changed, as if something unseen had heard, as if something unseen had answered. The night after the curse was spoken, sleep did not enter the palace on Hillview Crescent. The wind howled like a restless spirit around the mansion, rattling windows that had never rattled before. Anu did not wait for dawn. Before the first cock crowed, she folded her few clothes into a small worn bag. No farewell, no noise, only tears that fell like quiet rain upon the tiled floor of her tiny room. She paused at the gate. For a brief second she turned back and looked at the towering building, the house where she had swallowed humiliation like bitter medicine. Then she walked away. By morning she was gone. The security guard said he did not see her leave. The neighbor said no taxi stopped at the gate. It was as if the earth had simply opened and taken her. Mr. and Mrs. Adeyemi searched for a week, not out of remorse, but out of irritation. They wanted to question her, perhaps threaten her for daring to curse them. But Abuja is a big city. People disappear into it like grains of sand into the desert. And slowly as months rolled into years, Anu became a fading memory. Time, they say, is a clever thief. It steals fear first, then guilt. 2 years later, Joy knocked at their door. Madame Adeyemi was pregnant. The news spread like wildfire through Hillsville Crescent. Parties were thrown, church services were held, Thanksgiving offerings were made in bundles, so thick they looked like bricks. As for the cause, is forgotten, or rather buried under celebration. Her pregnancy was smooth. The doctor smiled confidently. The couple redecorated an entire wing of the mansion into a nursery painted in soft cream and gold. But fate is a quiet hunter. The day of delivery arrived with heavy clouds pressing against the sky. Madame Adeyemi labored for hours. Then at last a baby's cry pierced the hospital labor room. Then another, triplets, 3 beautiful children. But when the nurse brought them closer, the room fell into a deep silence, cooler than harmattan wind. Each child had skin pale like moonlight, hair soft and almost white, eyelashes faint like morning mist. Albinos, all 3. Madame Adeyemi stared at them as though she was looking at a mirror she once mocked. Her lips trembled. Her husband's hand began to shake, and like lightning striking dry grass, memory returned. Heaven that watches the proud, hear me today. Her voice echoed in their minds. As you mock the skin I did not choose, so shall your household wear it. Madame Adeyemi screamed, not from labor, but from realization. The cause had not been empty words, it had been a seed, and now it had blossomed. They rushed to search for Anu. They visited all addresses, questioned the market women, traced the agency that had brought her. No records, no traces. It was as if she had never existed. Some whispered she returned to her village. Others whispered she was no ordinary girl. But no one could say for certain. The Adeyemis returned home with their 3 children, fragile, beautiful, innocent. And the world can be kind, but it can also be cruel. When Madame Adeyemi stepped outside with her babies in the mall, people stared. Some covered their mouths to whisper, some pointed openly. Ah, all 3? Is it not the same thing she used to laugh at? Life has a way of teaching pride. Their ways followed her like shadows. Each mocking glance was a mirror reflecting her past cruelty. Each whisper was a reminder of laughter she once enjoyed. She stopped attending social gatherings, stopped hosting friends, stopped looking people in the eye. The grand mansion that once echoed with pride now echoed with regret. At night, when her children slept beside her, she would touch their soft pulsed cheeks and weep quietly, not because they were albinos, but because she now understood the weight of what she had once ridiculed. Regret became her companion. It sat with her at breakfast, it followed her to church, it lay beside her at night, and many times she would stare out of the window and whisper into the wind, "If only I had been kind." But time, like an arrow released from the bow, does not return to the hand. And so she lived the rest of her days carrying a lesson carved deep into her heart, that the skin you mock today may become the skin you protect tomorrow. This is a true life story of a housemaid who once suffered rejection and insult.